theyeshiva.net.
Okay, Tayir Yidin. Tez Zayin Amud Aleph, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 lines from the top. The Gemara quoted a Brisa, and the Brisa brought 3 opinions about the biblical status of beverages in terms of Tumah. Opinion number 1 was Reb Meir. Reb Meir said, liquid can become Tameh min HaTorah. Doesn't the Pasuk say in Parshas Shmini that if food or liquids fall into a keli that has become Tameh from a sheretz, meaning the keli was a rishon, the liquid can become Tameh. But Reb Meir said biblically that liquid cannot transfer Tumah to anything and anybody. Not even other foods. That liquid will not transfer Tumah. Practically speaking, it means that if there's a suffix if it transfer Tumah, we assume the lenient perspective, meaning that the other thing is targ. Why? Because it's a rabbinic doubt. Because only rabbinically can liquid transfer Tumah. But if there's a suffix, if the liquid itself became Tameh, then we choose the stringent path because it's a sveika doirais. Then the Brisa continued, Rabbi Elazar agreed with Reb Meir. Then there was the second opinion, other extreme, Rabbi Yehuda, who says not only can liquid become Tameh, but liquid can transfer Tumah, and not only to food, even to vessels. Asher yishasa b'chol kli yitma, even a keli can become Tameh from mashkin. Unique chiddush of Rabbi Yehuda that a keli can be a sheni b'dorais. And then there was the middle opinion, Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon, who say that mashke, liquid, can become Tameh min HaTorah. It can transfer it biblically to other foods, but not to other vessels. And the connection to our Mishnah, of course, was in a case where a carbon touched liquid, which touched a keli, which touched a sheretz, what would be the status of that meat? Reb Meir would hold it's tahar min HaTorah because it touched a liquid that was tameh, and liquid can't transfer biblical tumah, only rabbinic tumah, a rabbinic level of tumah. And therefore Reb Meir would hold that this basar that was being burnt and becoming tameh biblically was initially tahar midaraisa. Rabbi Yossi disagrees and says, no, this meat was tameh min HaTorah because it touched liquid that was tameh, and liquid could transfer tameh min HaTorah, and therefore it was already tameh biblically, not rabbinically. And when you burnt it with the basar that was a rishon, it was bumped up in terms of tumah from a shlishi d'oraisa, it became a sheni d'oraisa. And it happens to be that from a sheni d'Rabbanan, it was also a sheni d'Rabbanan, it becomes, it was a shlishi d'oraisa, and it was a sheni d'Rabbanan because it touched mashka, and mashka is always a rishon, so therefore rabbinically it was a sheni d'Rabbanan, as we learned Rashi at length, all the details. You're right. If Eichel is Metame Eichel is another question, and as Rashi explained, that this Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan would hold, like the first 2 opinions, that by Karbonis, Eichel is Metame Eichel, which means it would become biblically contaminated. You're right, if you say Ein Eichel Metame Eichel, even by Kachim, which is the view of Ravina in the name of Rava, then it would only be rabbinic. The whole thing would only be rabbinic, because food with food doesn't transfer Tumah. By Karbonis, 2 opinions hold yeah, 1 opinion holds no. By mundane food, everyone holds ein oichel matame oichel. By truma and kachim becomes the question, right? Abaye says ein oichel matame oichel by chulin, but truma and kachim, yes. Reb Ada bar Rava says ein oichel matame oichel by chulin and by truma, but by kachim, yes. Abaye says ein oichel matame oichel, only mundane food. But truma and kachim, oichel matame oichel. Rav Ada bar Rava in the name of Rava says, ain't oichel matame oichel by chulin and truma, but by kachim, yeah. So in this case, it would become tameh. Ravin in the name of Rava says, mikra moli dibur akasuv ain't oichel matame oichel. Oichel with oichel is only rabbinic. Which means the problem in our mission of meat touching meat is only a rabbinic problem because biblically nothing happened. The whole issue of becoming tameh meat with other meat is only rabbinic, according to that opinion. But Rashi said that the last opinion of Rabbi Yochanan has to be according to the opinion of Ein Oichel Matame Oichel by chulin, and maybe by truma, but not by kachim. By kachim, it's matame. Says the Gemara. Let me ask you a question. Are you going to tell me Rebbe Elazar holds that mashkin can have a tumah in the world? A very interesting expression. Are you going to tell me Rebbe Elazar holds that beverages have tumah in the world, meaning they can become contaminated? You said Rebbe Elazar agreed with Reb Meir. Reb Meir said that liquids can become tameh biblically. That means Rebbe Elazar agrees. Really? There's something off here. There's a paradox that we're encountering. Why? V'hatanya, we have another brisa. The brisa says Rebbe Elazar ein tumah l'mashkin kol iker. Rebbe Elazar has a fourth opinion. Liquids can't even become tameh. They have no tumah kol iker. Kol iker means whatsoever. On any level, they have no tumah. In other words, even they themselves cannot become tameh. You're going to ask me a question. Didn't we learn yesterday a pasuk that whatever is in a keli that had a sheretz becomes tameh? And the pasuk said, we learned it in Parshas Shmini, Mikol ha'oichel asher ye'achel asher yavei alav mayim yitma. Any food that's eaten, which gets wet with water, becomes tameh, and the v'chol mashke asher yishasa b'chol kli yitma. And any liquid that's drank in a keli becomes tameh. Where Elazar is arguing with a pasuk. It's explicit. It's not like it's not intimate. It's not hinted. You can argue about yitma yitame. I got that. Reb Meir says yitma. Reb Shimon, Reb Yossi, Reb Yehuda say yitame. I got that. Yitma yitame. Right? You could say yitame foods or yitame even a keli. Sheishasa b'chol kli yitame. Any kli it's matame. That's Rabbi Yehuda. Fine. But to tell me that liquids don't get tameh at all? But Rebbe Elazar, we're going to see, learns the pasuk completely different. It's just interesting to see the extremes. The way Rebbe Elazar understands the pasuk is it's not talking about liquid becoming tameh. It's talking about the types of liquids that can make the food wet to become tameh. So it says, any food that's eaten, that mayim came on it, and any other liquid that's drank in a keli came on it, the food becomes tameh. In other words, you didn't go from food to liquid. You're just expanding the types of liquids that can make food susceptible to tumah. That's what the Gemara. In other words, he completely has a different reading of a pasuk. The same pasuk with a completely different interpretation. Well, everyone holds if oichel is dry, if it never became wet, it's not mekabel tumah. So the Torah says, because the Torah says, what oichel will become tameh? Asher yavei alav mayim, v'chol mashke asher yishasa b'chol kli. Or any other liquid that you drink in a keli came in contact with the food, then the food yitma. A whole different interpretation. The chiddush is that food, that only food can become tameh. Ein tumah l'mashkin kol iker. Teida. Huh? So the pasuk says food, that water comes on it becomes tameh, or any liquid that's drank with every keli, parentheses, that comes in contact with food, yitma. Why does it say yitma twice? Why say yitma? Okay, that's a good question. Why say yitma twice for food and drinks? Okay, we'll see. I'm just bavaroning that you shouldn't think Rebbe Elazar doesn't know about a pasuk, right? Because how can you say such a thing? Liquid doesn't beget tameh. Nothing. That means I could put a mashka, a sheretz in a mashka, and nothing happens. The mashka can even touch a mace, or a person who touched a mace, or a keli that touched a mace. Could touch the sword that touched the mace. The sword that touched the mace is aviyah vayisatuma. And I could stick that into my water, my cup of wine. Nothing happens. Not an av, not a rishon, not a sheni garnished. Ain't tumah l'mashkin. It's something that can't get tameh. Like a rock can get tameh, right? You know, a rock can get tameh. Klei avonim, anam mekabel tumah. Huh? Yeah, we're not talking about mikveh. We're talking about yeah. Teida, the brisa continues. Rabbi Elazar says, "Sharei Yosef ben Yezer ish treda." There's a testimony that we have from Yosef ben Yezer ish treda. You may remember him from the beginning of Pirkei Avos, chapter 1. He's one of the earlier generations who, in the middle of Bayesheni, transferred the Messiah. And he gives a testimony And it's called Hayid because there's a whole Masechta, a tractate in Mishnah is called Tractate Eduyos. Eduyos means testimonials. And these are compilation of testimonies that were given over the generations. And that's where he says this testimony. Al Ayel Kamtza. There's a type of grasshopper called Ayel Kamtza that it's dachan. It's tahar. It's pure. It's kosher. In Aramaic, the word dachan is the word for tahar. Right? When the Targum wants to say tahar, it says dachan. So we all know that there are types of grasshoppers that are kosher. There are types of grasshoppers that are not kosher. So Yosef ben Ye'ezer, the man of Tzreida, said the grasshopper called Ayel Kamtza is kosher for Jewish consumption. He also said one more thing. Val mashkin beis mitbachaya dachan. The beverages that flow in the butcher house are pure. What butcher house is he talking about? Yosef ben Yezer said a very interesting halacha. There was a part in the Beis HaMikdash called Beis HaMitbachayim, the butcher home, the butcher place. This was on the northern side of the external Mizbeach. If this is the Mizbeach where they were makar of the Karbonis, this is the east of the Beis HaMikdash. You came in this way. The Kodesh HaKadoshim was the west. I'm just doing it for simplicity. Right? So this would be Darim, this would be south, because this is east, and this would be Tzafar. On the northern side of the wall of the Mizbeach, this section was called Beis HaMitbachayim, on the northern wall of the Mizbeach. This was a very important place. They would slaughter animals, and they would prepare the animals for what has to be done, meaning skin them, rinse them from the blood. So there was a lot of blood in the Beis HaMitbachayim, and there was a lot of water in the Beis HaMitbachayim. These are two of the classic beverages of the 7 beverages that become tamei. So Yosef ben Yezer said, he testified, that the mashke, the liquids that flow in the butchering section of the Beis, called Beis Mitbachaya, in the Azar of the Beis HaMikdash, on the northern side of the altar, dachan, they're tahar. They're not mekabel tumah. They're not susceptible to tumah. I didn't mean the word flow. I meant the liquids that are there. The liquids. Now let's understand something. Mashka of Beis HaMitbachayim is tahar. What is Yosef ben Yezer telling us here? He's obviously telling us that all liquids cannot become impure biblically. Because if liquid can become biblically impure, how in the world can the Chachamim say that this liquid is tahar? They don't have an authority like that. You know, people... Huh? On the contrary, kachim on makabel tumah more than anything else. The Torah doesn't say kachim on makabel tumah. On the contrary, a kohen who eats kachim that's tamei, or anybody, it's a serious issur. They're washing it, but tumah doesn't have to do with washing. Tumah has to do. Let's say somebody dies over there and touches this. Let's say there's a dead sheretz. Let's say there's a tumas nevela. Let's say there's anything that's tamei, and it touches meat, it touches drinks. If it would become tamei biblically, the rabbis don't have an authority to say something is tahar. You know, when a person learns Mishnah and Gemarah, you always have to remember that the koyach of the Chachamim was very limited. They can make a gzeira, they can make a decree, they can create a buffer zone, but they can't cancel out a biblical halacha. They didn't have that authority. So if liquid was only tamei rabbinically, not biblically, how then I could understand that the sages said we do not impose this tumah in the Beis HaMikdash. We're keeping it out of the Beis HaMikdash. But if you're going to tell me that biblically it's tamei, liquid is tamei biblically, and there's no point to say that it's only tamei outside of the Beis HaMikdash, not in the Beis HaMikdash, because the Torah never makes that qualification. So you're going to tell me that the Chachamim said that the liquid in the Beis HaMikdash is tahar? If a sheretz touches it, it's tahar? How could they say such a thing? Obviously, if Yosef ben Yezer said that the mashke in the butcher home is tahar, it means that the whole tumah of mashke is a rabbinic institution lechatchila. It's not a biblical institution. Ooh, if I made it, then I could play around with it. Then I could say, I made it only here. I didn't make it here. And there's a reason for the logic. What would be the reason for the logic? Rashi says, take a look in Rashi, the second of the wide lines. Al mashke beis mitbachaya dachan, al mashkin shal beis hamitbachayim shebazar kegoyin, hadam v'hamayim, blood and water, shehein dachan, she'einon mekabelin tuma, alma tumas mashkin derabbanon, ubahani loy gazru. You could say, since they're the ones who created the idea that mashke could become tamei, so they made a qualification. And the qualification is only outside of the holy temple, not inside of the Beis HaMikdash. Why would they do this? So Rashi, Mishum Hefset Kachim. They were very, very concerned that karbonos shouldn't be lost. If there's no tumas mashkin, so it's a gevaldik kazach. Even if a tame touches the blood on a carbon or touches the water, it's not going to, right? If it touches blood or water, and that blood and water come in contact with the carbon becomes disqualified. If you can protect the mashka from tumah, it's immune to tumah, it safeguards many more karbonis. Because remember, tumah was a very common thing. Yeah, a kohen releases semen, or there is somebody who becomes a nida, or somebody who becomes a zav or a zava, or somebody dies, right? Or there's a nevela, an animal dies, whatever it is. The shechita wasn't good. Or sheretz, any of the avos hatumah can happen in the Beis HaMikdash. And as a result of that, if liquid becomes tameh, it's very easy for karbonos to get tameh because there's so much liquid there and in contact with the meat. And therefore, the Chachamim did not want tumas mashkin to be in that area. But Rashi says, but that means the idai raisa hechi matzi rabbanu l'tarinu. But if it's biblical, the rabbis can't say, sorry, here there's no tumah. The Torah says, yeah, you say no. They don't have that authority. They try to minimize the possibilities of tumah spreading in the area with the karbonis because hefset kachim. They were so careful. So even though they made a gzeira that mashka could become tameh, just like oichel can become tameh, mashka could become tameh, but it was only the rabbinic gzeira. This is what Rabbi Elazar testified. He said that this is what Yosef ben Yezer Ish Tzreida said. And from here he learned that what? That mashka is not mekabel tumah min haTorah. So we have here a major contradiction. In our first brisa, he agrees with Reb Meir. Reb Meir said liquids could become tumah, they just can't transfer tumah. Here, Reb Elazar clearly says mashke has no tumah, and he doesn't mean it doesn't transfer tumah because he's proving it from Yosef ben Yezer, who says that the mashke in the Beis HaMikdash was tahir, which means that the whole tumah of mashke is rabbinic, not just the ability to transfer, but even the ability to become tameh. So the Gemarah says as follows. Hanicha.
Can it be specifically for Beis HaMikdash becomes one way and for
but if the tumah was min haTorah, the Chachamim don't have that freedom to do it. They cannot say it. Imagine the Chachamim will say, from today, on Pesach, we don't eat matzah. We start eating matzah on Shavuos. You're not allowed to listen to them. They don't have an authority to play with Torah like that. People don't realize. They think the Chachamim, rabbis, are free to do. Rabbis are the Chachamim were the most limited. Their whole objective was to explain Torah, to interpret Torah, to find out the truth of it, and sometimes to create safeguards around Torah, but never ever to manipulate, exploit, substitute, say, no, we're not doing this.
maybe Beis HaMikdash is such a special place because
Alt's good, Reb Avram, it's a special place, I agree with you.
the whole place is tower. It's like bitul b'shishim.
That's why they said that the gzeira that we're making on mashkin, we're not going to make in the Beis HaMikdash. But that's only if it's their own gzeira. If they make a gzeira, they could say, here yes, here not. For example, there's a din of ein shvus b'mikdash, right? In the Beis HaMikdash, the usual rabbinic injunctions for Shabbos were cancelled. Just an example, huh?
Only because they're the Rabbanan.
Yeah, because it's the Rabbanan. But they can't say something that you're not allowed to do in Torah you could do in the Beis HaMikdash. You're allowed to plant on Shabbos in the Beis HaMikdash. You're allowed to write in the Beis HaMikdash because it's the Beis HaMikdash. The Torah says no. Torah doesn't say in Beis HaMikdash you're allowed to write fakert. Torah says in the Mishkan you're not allowed to build on Shabbos. Torah says liquid is tameh. Where do you have the authority to tell me it's not tameh because it's in the Beis HaMikdash? The Torah says. The rabbis can't institute to bring a carbon on Shabbos. The Torah says that a carbon that was consistent and communal, you could bring on Shabbos. For example, the carbon tamid, slaughtering a lamb, is forbidden on Shabbos, but the same Torah that prohibits Shabbos allows and obligates to bring a lamb on Shabbos. But that's where the Torah says it. If the Torah would say that liquid in the Beis HaMikdash is Torah, we have no problem. But there's no such a pasuk in Chumash. They can't invent it.
Idea of Beis HaMikdash that everything there is tower, so you can't.
But it's not true. The Torah does say that meat can become tameh. Yeah. Torah doesn't say that in Beis Hamikdash there's no tumah. Fakert. Whatever. We're not talking if it happened. We're talking the right. But a kohen could become tameh. A kohen could become tameh. Yeah. Zog the Gemarah weiter. Hanichel Shmuel. This would be satisfied according to Shmuel, the Amar who says, Dachan milatami tumas acherim avol tumas atzman yeshlan shap. Shmuel holds that Yosef ben Yezer never meant that the liquids themselves are tahir. He meant that the liquids in the butcher house, in the Beis HaMikdash, are dachan, they're pure milatami tumas acherim. They will not transfer tumah. Aval tumas atzman yeshlan, but they themselves are mekabel tumah. In other words, Yosef ben Yezer holds that biblically mashke is mekabel tumah, even in the Beis HaMikdash. Rabbinically, they can transfer tumah to other foods, but not in the Beis HaMikdash, because the rabbis limited their gzeira only outside of the Beis HaMikdash. Because the transference of tumah of mashkin is rabbinic, therefore they could say it's not in the Beis HaMikdash, but the mashke itself gets tameh everywhere. Shapir. Then it works. Rebbe Elazar works. When Rebbe Elazar said, Ein tumah lamashkin kol ikar, he meant, Ein tumah lamashkin kol ikar, that biblically, mashke can't transfer tumah. Transfer. And where does he prove it from? Yosef ben Yezer. Yosef ben Yezer said that in the Beis HaMikdash, mashke doesn't transfer tumah. How can that be if it's biblical? It has to be that it's rabbinic. And therefore they could say in the Beis HaMikdash it doesn't transfer tumah. But themselves they become tameh. According to this explanation, even the Beis HaMikdash, according to this explanation, there's no contradiction between the two Rebbe Elazars. But Rav, who says dachan means dachan mamish pure, not only dachan from transferring tumah. Dachan mamish means the liquid itself is pure, it doesn't become tameh. Ma'ikal meimar. How are you going to explain this? According to Rav, Rebbe Elazar proved from the testimony of Yosef ben Yezer that liquids are not mekabel tumah min haTorah at all. Shmuel said when he used the word dachan, it meant dachan to transfer. Rav said dachan means dachan mamish, he himself is pure. Because the whole tumah of liquid, even vis-a-vis itself, is rabbinic. If so, we have a major contradiction between Rebbe Elazar and the second brayso, Rebbe Elazar and the first brayso. Amar Reb Nachman by Yitzchak, Reb Nachman by Yitzchak wants to answer achad. In the first brayso, Rebbe Elazar, the brayso says v'chein hoyer Rebbe Elazar oimer kedvarav. Rebbe Elazar agreed with Reb Meir. It doesn't mean he agreed with everything. It means he agreed only on one aspect of Reb Meir. Reb Meir said two halachas. Reb Meir said that if you have a suffix, if mashke became tameh or not, you say it's tameh. Why? Because it's a suffix d'oraisa. But if you have a suffix, if mashke transferred the tumah, you say tahir because it's a suffix d'rabbanan. And then it says Rebbe Elazar agreed to Reb Meir. So we have a problem. Reb Meir holds that mashke is mekabel tumah min haTorah, just can't transfer it. So he says no, he agreed only on one aspect. When I say I agree with you, it doesn't mean I agree to everything you said. I agreed on the last thing that you said. The last thing that you said was that if mashke transfers tumah, but you're not sure it happened, it's a suffix. So it's a suffix d'rabbanan. That Rebbe Elazar agrees with Reb Meir because he agrees that the transference of tumah is only rabbinic. But he also disagrees with Reb Meir about mashke itself. So when it says he agrees with Reb Meir, it's achada. It's only on one aspect of what Reb Meir said. But he disagrees with Reb Meir on the first issue. Reb Meir holds if it's a suffix, if mashke became tameh, it's a suffix d'oraisa. And there he disagrees. He holds that if it's a suffix, if it became tameh, it's a suffix d'rabbanan, because Rebbe Elazar holds that even mashke itself can't become tameh. Says the Gemara, it's a very nice answer. Take a look at the words of Rebbe Elazar. Dvarav is singular or plural? Dvarav is his words, not his word, his words. That means both statements. Kidvarav. The nefishi. Nefishi means many words, many things. In other words, Rebbe Elazar agrees kidvarav with both of his statements, not with one statement. Va'oid. And another problem. V'havechein katani. The language of the Bryce is Divrei Reb Meir, V'chein Hoyer Reb Elazar Oimer Kedvaru. Whenever it says V'chein, it means And the same thing, similarly, Rabbi Elazar said like his words. And you're telling me, nah, not really, 50%. Yeah, 50%. There's a very confusing way of writing it. You say, Rabbi Meir said this, and the same thing Rabbi Elazar said. No, not really. He disagreed on one, he agreed on the other. That does not add up. First of all, it says Kitvarav, and second of all, it says V'chein. And the Gemara's response is, Kasha. I'm left with a problem. I'm left with a question, right? The Gemarah will never give an answer just to give an answer. If the answer is intellectually dishonest, it's intellectually dishonest. So the Gemarah says, Kasha, we have a question. We have a problem. One brisa taught us that Rabbi Elazar says that liquid can become tamei min ha-Torah. A second brisa, Rabbi Elazar testified in the name of Yosef ben Yeazer that mashke cannot become tamei min ha-Torah. According to Shmuel, there was no contradiction because Rabbi Elazar didn't mean it can't become tamei. He meant it can't transfer tumah. According to Rav, we have a contradiction and we're left with a problem. We have two opposite traditions that do not match with each other. So the Gemarah says the Gemarah Gufa, we just learned, Rav Amar, Rav says, Dochan Mamish. It remains Tahir Mamish. Rabbi Elazar holds Mashke becomes Tahir biblically. Ushmol Amar, Dochan Melatami Tumas Acherim, Aval Tumas Atzmon Yashlahan. It won't transfer Tumah, but it becomes Tumah on its own. That's what we just learned. So the Gemarah explains the machlaikas. Rav Amar Dochan Mamish, Kasavar, he holds that Yosef ben Yeazer testified that Tumas Mashkin de Rabbanon. The whole concept of Tumas Mashkin is just a rabbinic institution. Fascinating. Liquids can't become tamei. It's so interesting, the contrast, that according to Yosef ben Yezer, biblically, mashke is the best thing in the world, doesn't get tamei. Rabbinically, it's always a rishon. It's always a rishon. It's just a very fascinating contrast, which you usually don't have, this paradox of mashke. From Yosef ben Yezer's perspective, min ha-Torah, it's completely immune to tumah. And with the Rabbanon, it's the worst. It's the worst of tumah. It's the worst tumah because it's always going back to rishon. It never diminishes. It never dilutes the tumah. It could touch a sheni, irrelevant. It goes back to rishon. It's supposed to be a shlishi. It jumps back 2 generations. In other words, you would think if it's such a weak tumah, because min ha-Torah it's nothing, so with the Rabbanon it should at least be a weaker tumah. And the more it goes down, it gets diluted. And if it's a shlishi, it should certainly be a shlishi. We say no, things that are biblically tamei can be a shlishi. Like truma, karbonis, a revi. If it touches a rishon, it becomes a sheni. If it touches a sheni, it becomes a shlishi. If it's biblically tamei. If something is biblically completely pure, it's good, it's fine. But the rabbis made a tumah on mashkin and they invented it according to Yosef ben Yezer. According to his opinion, it has a stringency that eichlin and other tumas will never have. Nothing has such a stringency that it always stays a rishon. It could be a 3rd generation, and it always is. It's Yafa Koyecha Ben Mikoyechav. It's just a very fascinating insight. Maybe we'll get back to it, but it's you could see there's a lot here. Like, what would be the rhythm here? It should be the other way around, no? But that's what Rabbi Yosef ben Yeazer is teaching us. That's Rav. That what Thomas Mashkin the Rabbanon, v'chigazru Rabbanon b'mashkin the Alma, and when the rabbis made a decree that mashke should become tamei, it's only mashke the Alma. It's only regular liquids. B'mashkin beis mitbachaya loy gazur, but in the mashke, in the butchering section of the Beis Hamidrash, they did not make the decree, and all liquids remain tahir over there. Ushmuel Amar, Shmuel says, Dochan melatami tumas acherim, aval tumas atzman yeshlahan. It's tahir from transferring tumah to others, but itself it becomes tamei. Because Kasavar, he holds that Yosef ben Yeazer believed that tumas mashkin atzman is da'iraisa. It's da'iraisa. And therefore, even in the Beis HaMikveh, it has to become tamei. L'tamei acherim de Rabbanon. Only to transfer is a rabbinic tumah. V'chigazu Rabbanon. And when did the Rabbanon make this gzeira that it transfers tumah? B'mashkin d'alma regular mashkin. B'mashkin Beis HaMikveh loy gazur. In the liquids of the Beis HaMikveh, they did not make this gzeira. V'chi loy gazur Rabbanon. And when the Rabbanon did not make this gzeira in Beis HaMikveh, it was only l'tamuya acherim, to be metamei others, because since it's only a Rabbanon, they could say that this doesn't apply in the Beis HaMikveh. They're going to be lenient. That if mashkin, the Beis HaMikveh, is tamei, and it touches basar, the basar remains tar, so they protect the karbonas, the beautiful takana. Aval tumas atzman yeshlahan, but the tumah of the mashke itself remains tamei even in the Beis HaMikveh. In other words, if you want to, if if you want to ask if this water is tamei or tar, this water is tamei or tar because tuma applies even in the Beis HaMikveh. This is the argument between how Rav learned it and how Shmuel learned it. And again, the principle is that the Chachamim cannot cancel out a tuma min ha-Torah. So if you hold that mashke is tahir in the Beis HaMikveh, you have to say that the whole institution is a rabbinic institution. If you hold that mashke is not tahir in Beis HaMikveh, but it can't transfer tumah in Beis HaMikveh, it means that the whole institution that mashke could transfer tumah is a rabbinic institution. And therefore they can divide and say in this place yes, and in this place not. So the Gemara says, Amalei Reb Huna bar Chinna livrei. Reb Huna, the son of Chinna, said to his son, Ki ailis lekamei de Rav Papa. When you're going to go into Rav Papa, Ramile, I want you to ask him a question. Reb Huna, the son of Chinna, turns to his son, says, you're going to visit Rav Papa. I need you to ask him a major question that's bothering me. What's the question? Fascinating question. Mi Amar Shmuel Dachan. Could Shmuel have really believed this? Could Shmuel have really believed that the mashke and Beis HaMikveh is dachan milatame tumas acherim, cannot transfer tumah to other things? Aval tumas atzmon yesh lahen, but they themselves become tameh, but they cannot transfer tumah because the rabbi said we're not going to allow it to transfer tumah because we want to protect the karbanos. Really, that's what Shmuel believed? Kari Khan. How could have he not read here this pasuk? This is the time to insert a pasuk, and he's going to quote a pasuk from Vayikra Perik Zayin. You mind giving me this chumash right in front of you? Vayikra Perik Zayin pasuk Yotes. I'm gonna quote the whole pasuk. It's Vayikra Perik Zayin pasuk Yotes, which should be in Parshas Tzav, right? Yeah. Vayikra Perik Zayin pasuk Yotes. If you have the blue chumashim, it's page 302. 302. Parshas Tzav, Leviticus chapter 7, verse 19. Take a look at the pasuk. 302, you see? Verse 19. Yeah. Let's read these words. V'habasar asher yiga b'chol tameh. Meat that touches b'chol tameh. I would translate anything that's tameh, lo ye'achel, should not be eaten. Parenthetically, you see here, right? The Torah is talking about karbonos, and the Torah says that karbonos could become tameh. Meat that touches anything tameh, do not eat. Ba'esh yisaref, burn it in fire. Here we have a biblical commandment that if a carbon touches tumah, you have to burn it. We kept on talking about how they had to burn everything, burn. How do they know to burn it? A pasuk. If meat touches tumah, burn it. V'habasar kol tahar yochal basar. This is an awkward sentence, which of course the rabbis come to life in such a sentence, because obviously there's a lot of code. It's basically it's programs. It's divine codes. And when a programmer sees a code, some people run away, and programmers come to life. Right? We're going to crack it. So this is obviously v'habasar kol tar yechal basar. This is too awkward for me. You don't write a sentence like this. You could say ba'esh yisaref, period. Kol tar yochal basar. That makes sense. If you're pure, eat the meat. If you're tameh, I don't want you to touch the meat, because if you touch the meat, that meat becomes tameh, and then it has to be burnt. I got that. What's v'habasar kol tar yochal basar? Okay. So the answer is so we have to understand what v'habasar is. I'm just pointing that out, just how they read psukim, because these are right away. These are telling you halachas. V'habasar, and the meat, kol tar yochal basar, which means that in this pasuk you have the word meat 3 times. It's not how you're supposed to write a sentence. You don't write in a sentence, one sentence, the word meat 3 times, right? And the meat that touches every tameh should not be eaten; it should be burnt. And the meat, every pure person should eat meat. Okay. But what are we learning here? We're learning on a basic level that when meat of a carbon touches any tameh, you cannot eat it. You cannot eat it. Who can eat it? Who can eat it? Kol tahar. Anybody who's pure can eat it. Now, doesn't it say b'chol tameh? Anything that's tameh? So now, if I have liquid that's tameh, and the basar touches it, based on this pasuk, would it be tameh or not be tameh? It says b'chol tameh. If it touches food, that's tameh. If it touches a person, that's tamei. If it touches a keli, that's tamei. If it touches liquid, that's tamei. It says b'chol tamei. But if Shmuel, very good. So if you hold like Rav, that tumas mashkin is the rabbanon, so midayraisa it's not tamei. So when it says b'chol tamei, it means food, humans, utensils. But liquid doesn't have a din tumah. So I got it. So the rabbis could say, even if we want to impose a din tumah, it's only outside of the temple. But in the Beis HaMitbachayim, we're back to the biblical equations. So if a carbon touches liquid, even if that liquid became tamei, it's fine. You know why? Because it's not tamei. Rabbinically, it's tamei. Not in the Beis HaMikdash. We never made this decree here. We don't want this decree here. We don't want mashke coming getting tamei. We like to maintain the status quo. I got it. But Loit Shmuel, who says that mashke itself becomes tamei, the gzeira of the Rabbanon was only that in the Beis HaMitbachayim it can't transfer tumah because they didn't want karbonos to become tamei. Outside, yeah, they made it the gzeira, but not inside. Asks Reb Huna to his son, go to Rav Papa and say, how could Rav Shmuel said this? How does he deal with this? It says, "Va'basar sheyiga b'chol tamei lo ye'achel." I could understand that mashke is not metame oichel of chulin midoraisa. You could say biblically, liquid doesn't transfer tumah to mundane food. Why? You're going to say, when it says v'chol mashka sheyeshasa b'chol kli yitma, it itself becomes tamei. It's not yitame. Like we learned before, it doesn't transfer tumah to other things. But when it comes to karbonos that touch it, the Torah says, "Abasar sheyiga b'chol tamei lo ye'achel." Because if the mashka is tamei midoraisa, the Torah says any meat that touches anything that's tamei is tamei. You have to burn it. How could the Chachamim cancel this out? How can they take it out? You understand the problem? If you tell me mashka is not tamei, I have no problem. That's why he's asking on Shmuel. Right? Mi Amar Shmuel. How could Shmuel explain this? That's why Rav must be right. When Yosef ben Yoyezer said that in the Beis HaMitbachayim, mashke didn't transfer tumah, he also meant that mashke doesn't become tumah. That's why it doesn't transfer tumah. If it's not tumah, it doesn't transfer tumah. Even the rabbis who said it's tumah, not in the Beis HaMitbachayim. For it doesn't transfer. But Shmuel holds it becomes tumah min HaTorah. And yet it doesn't transfer outside of the Beis HaMikdash. I have no problem. Chulin, I have no problem. Because this pasuk is talking about kachim. Chulin have no problem. Tell me that if chulin touches, if chulin touches mashke in the Beis HaMikdash, the rabbis didn't want it should get tamei. I have no problem with that. They're the ones who instituted the tumah. They're the ones who canceled it. Hapesha asa, hapesha hitter. But the idea that if a carbon touches something that's tamei, anything becomes tamei, that's a biblical halacha. And it includes liquids. Also, if you say that liquids are considered tamei. So b'meila, you cannot say that in the Beis HaMikdash, when a carbon touches a liquid that's tamei min HaTorah, the Torah should say it doesn't transfer. That's not fear. There's a pasuk that says, the Torah says, everything transfers tumah to karbonos. Everything. Where do you have a right to say not? You could say chulin it doesn't transfer, only rabbinically. If it's rabbinically, then we're the bosses. We could say in the Beis HaMikdash, we didn't make this gzeira. But this is not midirabbanan, this is a din min HaTorah. This is his question, Reb Huna's question on Shmuel. You understand the question? Strong question. A strong question. Okay, we have to discuss v'habasar, but I just wanted to point it out because I like pointing out these things. Now, you can't tell me that Yosef ben Yezer wasn't talking about karbonos. Maybe when he said mashka beis mitbachai is Torah to transfer, it's not karbonos, it's chulin. But that would be ridiculous. The whole point why they said mashka beis mitbachai doesn't transfer tumah is to protect karbonos. And yet karbonos precisely can get tamei. Amar Rav Shisha Barei Rabidi, Rav Shisha said, Rav Shisha the son of Rabidi said, really? What's your issue? Midi dahava revi b'kodesh? It always happens. This is the level of a revi b'kodesh. Let's face it. You understand his answer? Givaldik answer. We remember we have levels of tumah. Truma becomes a shlishi. Kachim becomes a revi. Okay? So let's do the example. A man touched a corpse. Yeah? This man who touched the corpse is an avatuma. Okay. The man now touched a keli. The keli became a rishon. He touches a metal keli, the keli becomes a rishon. Okay. You have food, you put into the keli. Challah, you put into the keli, or salad. It got wet, it becomes a sheni. It touches, you eat the challah with the salad, so your challah of truma touches the salad, so the challah is now a shlishi, right? You got it? Okay. Now I want to have a sandwich, my Korban Pesach. I have a sandwich, so I put lamb chops on my challah of truma that became a shlishi. And what did the lamb chops become? A revi. So this is carbon that became puzzle. It became, I'm not allowed to eat it. What happens if this lamb chop touches my wine of carbonis, or it touches meat of carbonis? What's the halacha? It's interrupted because a revi doesn't transfer. The pasuk says, no, after revi nothing. No, we're talking revi. It doesn't transfer. The pasuk says, a carbon that touches anything that's tumah you can't eat. So how does the revi interrupt tumah? Suddenly here everyone is minded that it doesn't transfer. But you just said meat of a carbon that touches anything that's tumah should not be eaten. So why do you interrupt it by revi? If this is a revi and it's tameh, so now if another piece of meat touches it, it should become a chamishi. And if this piece of meat touches another carbon, it becomes a shishi and a shvi, as long as you're talking about carbonis. Oh, so suddenly kol tameh doesn't mean kol tameh. It means there are exceptions, yeah? So here's another exception. That's what he says. Zolzain. I don't care, but you told me that you can't tell me that liquid doesn't transfer tumma to a carbon biblically. Why? Because the pasuk says, basar sheyiga b'chol tomei. Rabbis can't make an exception. Beis HaMitbachayim, no transferring. That's precisely where it transfers. But anything that's tomei. No, b'chol tomei means... No. Tumma is always b'chol. Biblical tumah is never limited to a space. You know that. The rabbis can make your hands tameh. Biblically, if the tip of your pinky becomes tameh, your entire metzius becomes tameh. It's DNA level. It's DNA level. It doesn't. Every jinnam has a copy of the whole organism. So Mela, it's always called tameh. That's his question. In other words, from Revi you can see that b'chol tameh doesn't mean literally b'chol tameh, because here is meat that touches a tameh revi, and you could still eat it. So what? Yeah, fine, but any item that's tameh is a revi tameh. Yeah, and if I touch it, nothing happens. Sheyiyeh, so zayin levels, but it touched a revi which is tameh, and still, if another piece of basar touches that revi, nothing happens. Or liquid touches that revi, nothing happens. No, after revi, nothing. No, if a sheni touches mashkin, it bumps it up. But if a revi touches mashkin, nothing happens. Yeah, the end of the game. So what do we have to say? That when it says b'chol tameh, it doesn't mean that anything that has a din of tumah can transfer tumah to meat. It means that something that we know that has the power of transferring tumah, then if a carbon touches it, it becomes tameh. Then yeah. In other words, something that we know that has a power to transfer tumah, if basar touches it, it becomes tameh. And you're not allowed to eat it and you have to burn it. So for example, if the meat touches something that we know that can transfer tumah, it becomes tameh. Touches a keli, touches a person, touches a food. But if it touches a revi doesn't have a power to give tumah. We exclude it. Oy bazai, if you hold that mashke doesn't have a power to transfer tumah, you're good. That's what Shmuel holds. You're anyway doing it. Don't tell me you just did a pshetel. It says b'chol tameh. Everybody's doing that pshetel. Because at some point they're limiting the tumah. Nobody goes after revi. So you see by revi b'kodesh you did it. Maskefla Rabashi rejected. He said, no. Revi b'kodesh loy ikra tameh. Hi ikra tameh. Don't compare this. Revi was never called tameh. We call it puzzle. We don't call it tameh, we call it pasul. It's disqualified to eat, but it's not tameh. In fact, nowhere does it say in Torah clearly that a revi becomes tameh. We learn it out from a kal v'chomer. We'll see how the rabbis got to revi. It may be biblical, but it doesn't say clearly that if a carbon touches a shlishi, touches a shein, it becomes tameh. The rabbis learned out from a kal v'chomer that it's disqualified to eat. So therefore, when it says va'abasa sheyiga b'chol tameh, it doesn't refer to revi. Revi is not called tameh. We even call it pasul. We don't call it tameh. Remember, there's a difference between pasul and tameh. Pasul means it's disqualified to eat. Tameh means it can transfer the tumah. But hi ikri tamei. But if you hold that mashke becomes tamei midaraisa, it's called tamei. The Torah says v'chol mashke asher yishasa b'chol kli yitma. So when it says basa asher yiga b'chol tamei, it must include mashke and it doesn't have to include revi. The Torah calls mashke, unless you hold like Rav that mashke doesn't get tamei, then I'm good. Then I have no issue with you. I have no issue. It doesn't get tamei. Beis HaMikveh Chaim, the rabbis didn't let it become tamei because their gzeira is only outside of the Beis HaMikdash. But if you're telling me that mashke becomes tamei min ha-Torah, and you want to tell me it doesn't transfer it to other things, but they're only midirabbanon, granted. Even in the Beis HaMikdash, only midirabbanon, granted. But if it touches karbanos, we have a pasuk. Habasar sheyiga b'chol tamei. If it's tamei, becomes tamei. And therefore, according to this opinion, if basar touches mashke tamei in the Beis HaMikveh Chaim, it has to become tamei, and therefore I do not understand how Shmuel can believe that Yosef ben Elazar said that the Chachamim let and allowed liquid that touched karbanos in a Beis HaMikveh Chaim to be pure meat. How could have that happened? Even if they say that the transferring of tumah is rabbinic, that cannot apply to sacred food of karbanos. It contradicts this pasuk. How then in the Beis HaMikdash did they have this cancellation of tumah when a carbon touched mashke that was tameh? In other words, the pasuk says whatever is called tameh pasels karbanos, even if it doesn't say anywhere that it has a koyach to be metameh others. If it's called tameh, it pasels karbanos. I revi b'kodesh has a din tumah and it doesn't pasel karbanos. That's not a proof. Revi was never called tameh. It's called pasel, and we learn it from a kal v'chomer. But mashke is called tameh. So from this pasuk, we could learn that if mashke touches karbanos, it touches karbanos, and the Gemarah says Kashya, another question that we have unresolved. We had one question earlier, the contradiction of two Rebbe Elazars, and now we have a problem with how Shmuel interpreted the meaning of Yosef ben Elazar. Reb Huna's question that he asked his son to ask Rav Papa remains unresolved. How could have Shmuel entertained this idea? What was the mechanism that the sages used to get out of this pasuk? How can have they allowed this? Rav makes perfectly sense. They believe that liquid was not tameh at all biblically. I got no problem. Tameh here is not liquid because it doesn't get tameh. I have no issue. The whole tumas mashkin is rabbinic. In the Beis HaMikdash, they canceled that. Fine. They didn't cancel it. They just didn't make the gzeira. But if you're saying like Shmuel that there is tumas mashkin min ha-Torah, the question is if it can transfer in Beis HaMikveh Chaim, it can't transfer it to karbanos. He says, I don't know how Shmuel made peace with this position based on this pasuk. What was his halachic mechanism that the sages used when they saw such a pasuk? How did they? What's the word? How did they? How did they get around it? How could they ignore it? And we don't have an answer for this. This is kasha. It could be mashke could be revi if it's karbonas. Pasul means you can't drink it. You just can't drink it. It's tameh. It's pasul. We'll soon learn. We'll learn on Daf Yudches the kal v'chomer they use to figure out the revi. But the point is, we don't have a source to call it tumah, so we're fine not calling it tameh. Have a wonderful Shabbos. Be'ezer Hashem will resume Monday.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.